The first note was always the hardest. Claire Davidson took a deep breath as she stood at the back of the ornate ballroom, clutching her microphone, willing herself not to throw up. Her best friend, Eliza's wedding, was perfect, the kind of elegant affair Claire had helped plan for months, while secretly wondering if her own love life would ever warrant such celebration. She straightened her bridesmaid's dress, a floor-length sage green gown that complemented her auburn hair, and nodded to the pianist. As the opening notes of Can't Help Falling in Love filled the room, Claire's rich, honeyed voice soon followed. The wedding guests turned in their seats, cocktails forgotten. She kept her eyes fixed on Eliza and her new husband James during the first verse, drawing strength from their joy. It wasn't until the second verse that Claire allowed her gaze to wander across the room. That's when she saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and an intensity in his eyes that nearly made her lose her place in the song. He stood at the edge of the dance floor, utterly still, watching her with undisguised fascination. The best man. She remembered him from the rehearsal dinner, though they hadn't been properly introduced. Marcus Holloway, James's mysterious childhood friend who'd flown in from somewhere overseas just for the wedding. Claire finished the song to enthusiastic applause, curtsied briefly, and hurried off to the side as the band took over. She needed water and a moment to collect herself. That was incredible. She turned to find the best man standing behind her, holding out a glass of water as if he'd read her mind. "Thank you." Claire accepted the water, noticing the perfect tailoring of his dark suit. "It's a special song for them. It's more than the song, it's your voice." His eyes, a striking shade of gray, held hers. "I'm Marcus Holloway, Claire Davidson. I'm the maid of honor and designated wedding singer," she added with a self-deprecating smile. "You're certainly not what I expected when James said his fiancée's best friend would be singing." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What did you expect? Someone who'd make the guests politely pretend to enjoy the performance." His mouth curved. "Not someone who would silence an entire room." Heat rose in Claire's cheeks. "I teach music at Westlake Elementary. Singing is just a hobby. Some hobby." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Are you performing again tonight?" "For their first dance, yes," he nodded, looking pleased. "I'll make sure not to miss it." Before Claire could respond, Eliza's mother swooped in, insisting she join the family photos. She excused herself, acutely aware of Marcus's eyes following her across the room. For the next hour, Claire was swept up in wedding duties, fixing Eliza's train for photos, coordinating with the caterers about the cake cutting, making sure the flower girl hadn't wandered off. She caught glimpses of Marcus throughout the reception. Unlike most best men who spent weddings getting progressively drunker, he remained composed, attentive, engaged in conversation with various guests, but somehow always aware of where she was in the room. When it came time for the first dance, Claire took her position by the band. She sang at last, watching her best friend sway in her new husband's arms. As the song ended and other couples joined the dance floor, Claire was surprised to find Marcus standing beside her again. "One song for everyone else seems unfair," he said. "Would you dance with me?" "I'm not much of a dancer," Claire admitted. "Fortunately, I am." He extended his hand. "Unless you're saving your dances for someone special?" "No." The word came out more emphatically than she'd intended. "No one special." His hand was warm as it closed around hers, leading her onto the dance floor. Marcus moved with surprising grace for such a tall man, guiding her effortlessly among the other couples. "So, Marcus Holloway, what do you do when you're not being a best man?" Claire asked, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach each time his hand shifted against her back. "I run a shipping company," he said simply. "International shipping." "Is that why James said you fly all over the world?" He nodded. "We have operations on 4 continents. What about you?" "Has teaching always been your dream?" "Since I was 8, Claire said. "Though I originally wanted to teach high school choir, elementary music wasn't the plan, but now I can't imagine doing anything else." "What changed your mind?" "Student teaching." I realized younger kids still have this pure love of music before self-consciousness sets in. Watching a second grader discover they can make beautiful sounds. She smiled. It's magic every time. Marcus studied her face. You truly love it. I do. The pay is terrible and the hours are long, but yes, I love it. The song ended, but Marcus didn't release her. Would you mind another dance? They danced 3 more songs, talking about everything from favorite travel destinations, his, coastal Japan, hers, the Italian countryside she'd only seen in movies, to worst childhood pets, his, a vicious parrot, hers, a goldfish that somehow lived 7 years. By the 4th song, Claire was acutely aware that people were noticing them. Eliza caught her eye and gave an exaggerated thumbs up from across the room. I should probably circulate, Claire said reluctantly. Maid of honor duties and all, of course. Marcus stepped back. Though I hope we can continue our conversation later. The rest of the evening was a blur of toasts, cake, and coordinating the bouquet toss. Claire found herself constantly searching for Marcus in the crowd, their eyes meeting across the room with increasing frequency. It was nearly midnight when she finally had a moment to herself. She slipped out onto the hotel's terrace for fresh air, surprised to find it empty except for Marcus, leaning against the railing and looking out at the city lights. Escaping the party? Claire asked, joining him at the railing. Just taking a moment, crowds aren't really my thing. He turned to face her. You were watching for me. It wasn't a question. Claire could have denied it, but something about the quiet night and the way he looked at her made honesty feel like the only option. I was, she admitted. You're not what I expected in a best man. What did you expect? Someone more? I don't know, fraternity brother-ish. James never mentioned you much. Marcus smiled slightly. We've known each other since boarding school, but we move in different circles now. I'm not around much. Because of your shipping company, he nodded. It keeps me traveling. Where's home, then? I have a place here in the city, but I'm rarely there. A penthouse that's more like an expensive storage unit at this point. He glanced at her. What about you? Are you local? An apartment on the east side. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. They talked for nearly an hour on that terrace, the sounds of the reception growing fainter as guests gradually departed. Claire learned that Marcus was 34 to her 29, that he had a younger sister studying in Europe, that despite traveling constantly, he was painfully addicted to a terrible science fiction show he never missed. When her phone buzzed with a text from Eliza asking where she'd disappeared to, Claire realized how long they'd been talking. I should go, she said. They're about to do the send-off. Marcus nodded. I'll be leaving early tomorrow for a meeting in San Francisco. Would it be too forward to ask for your number? Claire felt a flutter of excitement mixed with caution. Is this something you do at all your friends' weddings? Charm the bridesmaids? I've never asked for a bridesmaid's number before, he said seriously. Or anyone's at a wedding, for that matter. Something in his direct gaze convinced her. Claire pulled out her phone and they exchanged numbers. I'll call you when I'm back in town, he promised as they walked back inside. After Eliza and James departed in a shower of rose petals, Claire helped with the final cleanup, her mind still on Marcus. He'd slipped away shortly after the send-off with a simple goodbye and a lingering look that made her pulse quicken. 3 days later, Claire had almost convinced herself the connection had been purely situational, the romance of the wedding, the dancing, the moonlight on the terrace. Marcus hadn't called, and despite checking her phone embarrassingly often, she tried to put him out of her mind. Then, on Wednesday afternoon, as she was finishing up a lesson on rhythm with her 3rd graders, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Claire, it's Marcus. Sorry for the delayed contact. Meetings ran long. Would you be free for dinner Friday night? She waited until her students had filed out before responding with a simple yes and her address. His reply came instantly. 7 o'clock. Dress warmly. Friday evening, Claire spent far too long deciding what dress warmly meant in terms of date attire. She eventually settled on a soft blue sweater dress with tights and boots, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders. At precisely 7 o'clock, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Marcus standing there in dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater, looking simultaneously more casual and more handsome than he had at the wedding. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thanks." Claire grabbed her coat. "So where are we going that requires warm clothes? You'll see." He led her down to the street where a sleek black car waited. "I hope you like surprises." The surprise turned out to be a private rooftop dinner at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. The entire roof had been transformed into a winter wonderland with strings of lights, portable heaters, and a clear view of the city skyline. A single table waited in the center. "This is excessive for a first date," Claire said, taking in the elaborate setup. "Is it?" Marcus pulled out her chair. "I thought it was appropriate given how we met." As they settled in, a waiter appeared with champagne and the first course of what turned out to be a 7-course meal. "So tell me more about your shipping company," Claire said, after they'd made it through the appetizers. "It must be doing well if you can arrange something like this." Marcus took a sip of his champagne. "Holloway Maritime started as a single cargo ship my grandfather purchased after WW2. My father expanded to a small fleet. When I took over 10 years ago, we had maybe 30 vessels. Now we're one of the largest private shipping companies in the world." Claire nearly choked on her drink. "Wait, Holloway Maritime, the global shipping conglomerate." He nodded, watching her reaction carefully. "But Claire struggled to find words. "Marcus, that company is worth billions." "Yes," he said simply. Claire set down her fork, suddenly understanding all the little things that hadn't quite added up: the perfect suit at the wedding, the way the restaurant had closed an entire rooftop for him on short notice, the casual mention of a rarely used penthouse. "You're not just running a shipping company. You're a billionaire." "I don't usually lead with that information," he said with a slight smile. "It tends to change how people interact with me, I can imagine." Claire took a large sip of water. "Why didn't you mention this before? Would it have mattered when we were dancing?" "No, but—" She gestured around at the elaborate setup. "This is a lot. I teach elementary school music. My idea of splurging is ordering dessert." Marcus leaned forward. "Claire, I arranged this because I wanted to see you again, not to impress you with money. If you'd prefer, our next date can be coffee at the shop around the corner from your apartment." "Next date?" Claire couldn't help smiling. "You're pretty confident, only hopeful." He held her gaze. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the wedding." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of delicious food and increasingly comfortable conversation. By dessert, Claire had almost forgotten about the wealth revelation, captivated instead by Marcus's stories about growing up on ships, his dry sense of humor, and the way his eyes crinkled when he really smiled. After dinner, they walked along the rooftop edge, looking out at the city lights. Without the awkwardness of the wedding or the shock of discovering his true status, Claire found herself drawn to his quiet intensity, the careful way he listened when she spoke, as if cataloging every word. "I have to fly to Tokyo tomorrow," Marcus said as they stood close together, the night air cool around them. "I'll be gone for 2 weeks." Claire tried to hide her disappointment. "Oh, well, safe travels. I'd like to call you while I'm away, if that's all right." "I'd like that too." He walked her home, stopping at her door. When he kissed her goodnight, it was gentle but purposeful, a promise rather than a question. True to his word, Marcus called her daily from Tokyo, despite the time difference. They talked about their days, his business meetings, her students' spring concert preparations. Each conversation made the connection between them feel more real, more substantial than just the magic of a wedding night. The pattern continued over the next 2 months. Marcus would be in town for a few days, taking her to hidden gems around the city, a tiny Italian restaurant where the owner greeted him by name, an after-hours tour of the art museum, a picnic in the botanical gardens. Then he'd be gone again: London, Singapore, Cape Town, but always calling, always present despite the distance. Claire found herself falling for him not for his wealth, which he wore so lightly she often forgot about it, but for his thoughtfulness, his quiet determination, the way his entire focus centered on her when they were together. It wasn't until they'd been dating for nearly 3 months that she finally saw his home, the penthouse storage unit, that turned out to be a stunning 2-story apartment overlooking the harbor. "This is where you don't spend time?" Claire asked, wandering through the sparsely decorated but obviously expensive space. Despite its grandeur, it had an unlived-in feel, beautiful but impersonal, like a high-end hotel suite. "It never felt like home," Marcus admitted, watching her explore. "Just somewhere to keep my things." Later that evening, curled on his sofa overlooking the city, Claire asked the question that had been on her mind for weeks. "Doesn't it get lonely, all the traveling, never staying in one place?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Yes," he finally said, "it always has been. But it's been the price of building what my grandfather started into what it is today." "Is it worth it?" she asked softly. He looked at her, really looked at her. "It was, until I met you." Their relationship deepened over the following months. Claire introduced Marcus to her small circle of friends, who were initially intimidated by his status but quickly charmed by his lack of pretension. He took her to the occasional business function, where she discovered she had a talent for putting his more nervous associates at ease. The travel remained an issue. Marcus would be in town for a week, then gone for 2. He offered to fly Claire out to meet him in various cities, but her teaching schedule made that difficult during the school year. "I could get you a private tutor for your students," Marcus suggested one night during a video call, only half joking. He was in Hong Kong. She'd just finished a long day of parent-teacher conferences. "That would defeat the purpose of being their teacher," Claire laughed. "Besides, we both knew what we were getting into. I'm not asking you to change your life." But she could see he was restless, unsatisfied with the arrangement. The following week, when he returned, he took her to dinner at the same rooftop restaurant where they'd had their first date. "I've been thinking about us," Marcus said as they finished their meal. "About the future." Claire felt a nervous flutter. "That sounds serious." "It is." He reached across the table for her hand. "I've restructured the company, brought in a COO to handle the day-to-day operations. I'll still need to travel sometimes, but not like before." "Marcus, you didn't have to do that." "I did," he interrupted gently. "Not just for you, for me. I've spent 15 years building something I never take time to enjoy, something that keeps me from having a real life, a real home." He squeezed her hand. "Being with you has shown me what I've been missing." Claire's heart pounded. "What are you saying?" Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I'm saying I love you, Claire Davidson. I'm saying I want to build a home with you, a real one, not just a place to keep our things." He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring. "I'm saying I want to marry you if you'll have me." Claire stared at the ring, then at the man holding it. The billionaire shipping magnate who'd been captivated by her singing at a wedding, who called her from across the world just to hear about her day, who was now offering to reshape his life to fit with hers. "Yes," she whispered, tears forming. "Of course, yes." The wedding was held the following spring, not the lavish affair people might have expected from one of the world's wealthiest bachelors, but an intimate gathering at a coastal estate. Claire sang again, this time for her own first dance as Marcus held her close, whispering that he'd fallen in love with her voice before he even knew her name. They honeymooned in Italy, visiting all the places Claire had only dreamed of seeing, staying in villas and farmhouses rather than the luxury hotels Marcus usually frequented. When they returned, they moved into a new home, not his impersonal penthouse, but a beautiful brownstone with space for Claire's piano and enough bedrooms for the family they hoped to build. Marcus still traveled occasionally, but now Claire often went with him, arranging her teaching schedule around longer school breaks. They established a foundation supporting arts education in underfunded schools, with Claire taking the lead while continuing to teach. 2 years after their wedding, They welcomed twin daughters who inherited Claire's auburn hair and their father's gray eyes. Marcus, the man who had once lived out of suitcases, became the kind of father who never missed a bedtime story, who built elaborate playhouses in the backyard, who recorded every milestone with painstaking detail. On their 5th anniversary, Marcus surprised Claire with a return to the hotel where they'd met. He'd rented out the same ballroom where Eliza and James had been married, where Claire had sung not knowing the best man was watching her with his heart in his eyes. "What's all this?" Claire asked, looking around the empty ballroom decorated with flowers and twinkling lights. "I realized we never danced here again after that night," Marcus said, nodding to a musician in the corner who began playing the song they'd first danced to. As they swayed together, Claire rested her head on his shoulder. "Did you know that night at the wedding that we'd end up here?" "Not specifically," Marcus admitted, "but I knew something had changed the moment I heard you sing, like the universe had shifted." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I'm still captivated by you, Claire Holloway, every single day. Even when I'm in sweatpants with baby food in my hair, especially then." He smiled against her hair. "You gave me more than love, you know. You gave me a home, somewhere that matters beyond what I own or what I've built." Claire looked up at the man who had once been just the mysterious best man at her friend's wedding. The man whose wealth had initially intimidated her but whose heart had won hers completely. "I love you," she said simply. And there in the ballroom where it all began, the billionaire and the music teacher continued their dance, the rhythm of their life together playing on in perfect harmony.